Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
5 tests, 18 months, and they finally gave me their approval. Too bad they forgot I could leave. It all started to unravel on a Sunday morning while I was making pancakes. My wife's 4 friends were over for brunch, sitting in our living room with their coffee and mimosas, voices drifting through the open kitchen window. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Our house just has that layout where the kitchen and living room share a wall, and sound carries. I was mid-flip when I heard Jennifer's voice, my wife's closest friend for the past decade. "So we're all in agreement?" He passed. The spatula froze in my hand. 5 for 5, another voice responded. I honestly didn't think he'd make it through the vacation one. My brain started cataloging references even as I stood there, pancake slowly burning on the griddle. The promotion thing was the real test, a third voice added. He could have gotten so bitter about that. "I'm calling it," Jennifer said with finality. "He's a keeper. She should definitely keep him." Then my wife's voice, quieter than the others, uncertain. "You guys really think so?" "Absolutely. You found a good one. He's husband material." I stood there with batter dripping off the spatula, my mind racing through 18 months of marriage, suddenly seeing everything through a different lens. Vacation, promotion, 5 for 5. The phrase "she should keep him" echoing in my head like a judgment from some invisible tribunal. I finished the pancake. Muscle memory took over. I plated the entire batch, arranged them on our nice serving platter with the strawberries and whipped cream, and walked into the living room like nothing had happened. The conversation stopped the instant I appeared. 5 faces turned toward me, and I watched my wife's expression shift from relaxed to something approaching panic in the space of a heartbeat. I set down the platter with deliberate care, right in the center of the coffee table, made direct eye contact with my wife, spoke in the same pleasant tone I always used when hosting her friends. "Sorry to interrupt. Just heard something interesting from the kitchen." I let the silence hang for exactly 3 beats, long enough to make them uncomfortable. 5 tests, 18 months, and you finally decided I'm a keeper. My wife's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. The color drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug. Her friends suddenly found their laps fascinating. "Congratulations on passing your evaluation of me," I continued, voice still perfectly calm. Then I turned and walked back to the kitchen, leaving the pancakes behind. I heard the awkward silence, then chair scraping, footsteps, the kitchen door closing as my wife followed me in, separating us from her audience. "It's not what it sounded like," she started immediately, voice high with stress. "I was at the sink, rinsing the griddle. Didn't turn around." "What was the vacation one?" "You're taking it out of context." "What promotion thing?" Still not looking at her. They were just being supportive. I turned off the water, turned to face her. "How many tests exactly?" The silence stretched. I simply waited. I'd learned years ago that silence makes people uncomfortable enough to fill it, usually with truth. 5, she finally whispered. I nodded slowly, processing. 5 separate occasions where you and your friends manipulated situations to evaluate my worthiness as a husband. Not a question, a statement. Tell me about them. All of them. And slowly, painfully, like pulling teeth, the truth started coming out. Test 1 had been 4 months into our marriage. Her mother's emergency hospitalization. I remembered that night vividly. The phone ringing at 6 in the morning. Her voice panicked, saying her mother was in the hospital. They thought it might be her heart. I'd had a major presentation at work that morning, the kind that could make or break the first quarter. But I'd immediately pulled up flight booking sites while she packed. "I'll get your ticket," I'd said. "Go pack. I'll drive you to the airport. But your presentation can be rescheduled. Your mom can't wait." I'd driven her to the airport at 4 in the morning, stayed until her flight boarded, called my boss from the parking lot to reschedule everything. Came home and spent the day worried sick about a woman I'd grown to love as my own mother. Turns out it was routine tests. Nothing emergency about it. Her mother was fine. Had been fine. The whole thing was deliberately exaggerated to see if I'd guilt-trip my wife or be supportive of her leaving during an important work week. "Your mother was in on it?" I asked. "No," my wife said quickly. "She really was in the hospital. Just not as serious as I made it sound." "So you lied about your mother's health to test my reaction." I kept my voice flat, emotionless. "And I drove you to the airport at 4 in the morning, thinking she might die, while you were running an experiment." She couldn't meet my eyes. Test 2 was the dinner with Jake from work. I remembered that one too. She'd come home on a Tuesday, mentioned casually that Jake was going through relationship problems, and had asked if she could grab dinner with him to talk through it. Just the two of them. I'd encouraged her to go, told her to take her time, that I hoped Jake figured things out. The dinner had gone until midnight. She hadn't texted much during it. I hadn't asked her to. When she came home, I'd asked how it went, if Jake was doing okay. That was it. What I hadn't known was that her friends were monitoring our text exchange in real time, checking whether I'd blow up her phone with jealous messages, timing how long it took her to respond, analyzing whether I'd be passive-aggressive when she got home. I'd pass by being secure in our relationship, by trusting her. Jake was real, my wife said defensively. He really was having problems. But your friends suggested you use it as an opportunity to test whether I'd get jealous. I finished for her. She nodded, miserable. Test 3 was the Hawaii trip, the girls' vacation that had been scheduled during my birthday week. I remembered my wife bringing it up, clearly excited about the trip, but nervous about the timing. The flights were a great deal, she'd said. The hotels were already booked. But it was the second week of March, which included my birthday. You should go, I told her immediately. Birthdays happen every year. How often do you get to go to Hawaii with your friends? She'd been relieved. Grateful. We'd celebrated my birthday the weekend before she left, and it had been fine. Great, even. I'd meant what I said about birthdays not being a big deal. What I hadn't known was that they'd deliberately chosen my birthday week. That the whole thing was designed to test whether I'd be controlling about money or her time. Whether I'd make her feel guilty for prioritizing herself. You let them schedule it during my birthday on purpose, I said. They thought it would be a good test of financial control and self-centeredness. I finished. I heard that part in the living room. What I want to know is, did you want to go to Hawaii, or did you want to test me? Both, she admitted quietly. I did want to go, but not enough to stand up for picking any other week out of the 52 available. I shook my head. 365 days in a year, and you let them deliberately pick the 7 that included my birthday. Test 4 was the promotion I didn't get. That one hadn't been manufactured, but they'd used it anyway. I remembered coming home that day, completely deflated. I'd been working toward that promotion for 3 years. Extra hours, extra projects, everything. And they'd given it to someone else. I told my wife about it. Been honest about feeling disappointed, a little humiliated, frustrated with office politics. She'd listened, been supportive. I'd processed it over the weekend and moved on. Didn't let it poison our home life or turn me bitter. What I hadn't known was that she'd been taking notes, documenting my emotional regulation, reporting back to her committee about how I handled failure. You scored my response to one of the worst professional disappointments of my career, I said quietly. I was just processing. On a scale of 1 to 10. You rated my emotional maturity while I was confiding in you about feeling like a failure. She started crying. I felt nothing. Test 5 was the worst. Her brother's comments at the family dinner 2 months ago. I remembered that night clearly. We'd been at her parents' house. Her brother was visiting from out of state. Over dinner, the conversation had turned to careers. You're still at the same company? Her brother had asked. What's it been, 6 years? 6 years, I'd confirmed. Started right after grad school. Same position. Got promoted twice. Senior analyst now. He'd exchanged a look with my wife then. I'd caught it, but hadn't understood it at the time. Senior analyst, he'd said slowly. That's comfortable. The word had dripped with condescension. It pays well, I'd said evenly. Good benefits. I like the work. Sure. But don't you ever think about something bigger? Starting your own firm? Consulting? Something entrepreneurial? I've thought about it. For now, I'm happy where I am. Happy. He'd leaned back in his chair. No offense, man, but that sounds like settling. My sister deserves someone who's going places, not someone content being comfortable. The table had gone silent. Her parents looked uncomfortable. My wife had stared at her plate. I kept my voice calm. Your sister married me knowing exactly who I was and what I did. If she has concerns about my career ambitions, she can tell me herself. I'm just saying. I know what you're saying, and you're entitled to your opinion about my choices. But my career path is between me and your sister. The topic had changed. The rest of dinner was tense. In the car ride home, I'd brought it up. Your brother really came at me tonight. He's protective, she'd said. You know how he is. Protective would be asking if I treat you well. That was insulting. He just wants what's best for me. And you said nothing. Now, standing in our kitchen, I looked at her directly. You told him to say that. You scripted my own brother-in-law to insult me at a family dinner. Not insult, just question. He called me mediocre. Said you deserved someone going places. And you sat there silent because you were watching to see if I'd cause a scene or demand you choose between me and your family. She couldn't deny it anymore. Which I didn't. I continued. I de-escalated. Kept my composure. Didn't turn it into family drama. Another gold star for me. My voice got harder. But you used your own brother as a weapon. And you've let him keep thinking I'm not good enough for you because admitting the truth means admitting what you did. The silence that followed was broken by my next question. If I'd failed any of these tests, what was the plan? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. What was the plan? I repeated. They suggested counseling after test 3, she whispered. After test 4, they talked about separation. The word hung in the air between us. You were prepared to leave me. If I didn't pass the program, you had an exit strategy. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You said it yourself. They recommended separation, which means you were listening to those recommendations. You were actually considering ending our marriage based on a committee vote. I walked past her, back toward the living room. Her friends were still there, sitting in uncomfortable silence, probably straining to hear what was happening in the kitchen. They all looked up when I entered. No one spoke. I'm curious about something, I said, remaining standing. Power move. Basic psychology. What happens with test 6? They exchanged confused glances. Jennifer spoke first, trying for a laugh that didn't quite land. There is no test 6. You passed all 5. You're right, I said calmly. Test 6 is different. I let that hang for a moment. Test 6 is mine. I watched the confusion spread across their faces. For 18 months, you've been deciding if I'm worthy of staying in this marriage. I kept my voice level, conversational even. Test 6 is me deciding if this marriage is worthy of me staying in it. The implication landed. I could see it in their faces. I turned to my wife, who had followed me back into the room. So here's what I want you to do. I made direct eye contact. Ask your friends if I should stay. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Go ahead, I encouraged. Since they've been making decisions about our marriage for 18 months, let's get their opinion on this one too. Ask them, should I stay or should I go? The silence was absolute. My wife's face showed the realization washing over her in real time. She couldn't ask because she suddenly understood how completely insane it sounded. How insulting. How degrading. Jennifer tried to salvage the situation. Look, we were just trying to protect her. From what exactly? I asked, turning to face her. From having a husband who shows up, who supports her career and her friendships, who handles disappointment like an adult, who doesn't throw tantrums when plans change. You don't understand the kind of experiences women have. I understand that if a man did this to a woman, you'd call it psychological abuse. Testing someone repeatedly, documenting their responses, having exit strategies, making them prove their worth over and over. Another friend spoke up. We were helping her make an informed decision about her future. She made an informed decision 4 years ago when she married me. I said, what you did was make her question that decision every single day until I proved myself worthy to a panel of strangers who don't know me, don't live with me, and have no stake in our marriage except drama. I looked at my wife's laptop, still open on the coffee table. Something had been visible on the screen earlier. A document. How were you tracking those emotional regulation scores exactly? I asked. I walked over and looked at the screen before anyone could close it. The title made my blood run cold. Relationship Evaluation Framework, 18-month assessment period. I sat down then, started reading. The room was dead silent. The document was comprehensive, detailed. Each test listed with specific dates, manufactured scenarios, desired behavioral outcomes. My actual responses documented word for word. Numerical scores on a 10-point scale across multiple categories. Financial compatibility, 9 out of 10. Emotional maturity, 8 out of 10. Trust and security, 9 out of 10. Family and priority dynamics, 8/10. Ambition and personal growth, 7/10. Conflict resolution, 9/10. Overall weighted average, 8, 4 out of 10. There was a whole section called Scoring Rubric and Assessment Methodology. Another section analyzing patterns in my behavior. Concerns noted. Red flags monitored. Green lights authorized. At the bottom, a recommendation section in bold. Approved for long-term partnership. And below that, in a larger font, marriage continuation, authorized. I read that line 3 times. You scored me before you said yes to marrying me. I said, my voice completely flat now. I scrolled up. The document was dated. The final approval date was 3 weeks before she told me she was ready to start trying for kids. I started reading aloud. Subject demonstrates appropriate response to boundary testing. Recommend proceeding with scenario 4 to confirm emotional stability under professional stress. I looked up at my wife. Subject. Not husband. Not partner. Not even my name. Subject. I can explain, she started. I kept reading. Test 4 assessment notes. Subject's ambition and personal growth score reflects concern about acceptance of career setbacks. Points deducted for insufficient drive to overcome obstacles. Recommend monitoring for patterns of complacency. I closed the laptop carefully. Looked at my wife's friends. You gave me a 7 out of 10 for ambition because I didn't stay bitter long enough after getting passed over for promotion. You wanted me to be more upset, to fight harder, to show more fire. Then I looked at my wife. And you agreed with them. You documented that I might be too comfortable with failure. While I was confiding in you about one of the most humiliating experiences of my professional life. The friend who'd been quiet until now spoke up. We were trying to help. No, I cut her off. You were trying to control. There's a difference. You were trying to run her life by committee because none of you trust her judgment. Or maybe because you don't trust anyone's judgment. Either way, you took my marriage and turned it into your personal psychology experiment. I stood up. I think it's time for everyone to leave. We just want to talk about this, Jennifer started. You're not welcome in this house anymore, I said calmly. You're not welcome in my marriage anymore. I walked to the front door and opened it. If you want to maintain these friendships, I said to my wife, you'll do it somewhere I'm not. Because I'm done being evaluated by people who've never even tried to know me. They gathered their things in awkward silence. Filed out one by one. My wife stood frozen in the living room, tears streaming down her face. When the last friend left, I closed the door. Didn't say anything to my wife. Just walked to the home office and closed that door too. I spent the entire night in that office. Didn't sleep. Just sat in the chair, staring at the wall, replaying 18 months of marriage through this new lens. Every moment was suspect now. Every conversation. Every shared experience. Had any of it been real? Or had she been evaluating me the whole time? Our wedding day. Had she meant those vows? Or were they contingent on my continued good behavior, on maintaining my 8 for average? Buying our house. I remembered her being excited about the neighborhood, the backyard, the kitchen. Was that genuine? Or was she testing my financial decision-making? The conversations about starting a family. We'd been talking about trying for kids. The timing felt right, we'd said. Both stable in our careers. Financially secure. Ready for the next chapter. But the final authorization on that document was dated 3 weeks before those conversations intensified. Had she needed committee approval before agreeing to have children with me? The thought made me physically ill. Around 6 in the morning, I heard movement in the house. Water running. Coffee brewing. My wife hadn't slept either. I emerged from the office to find her in the kitchen, looking like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Red eyes. Puffy face. Hands shaking as she poured coffee. I've been thinking about test 6, I said. She spun around, relief flooding her features. I was talking. That meant there was still a chance, she thought. I could see it in her face. I've decided what it should test, I continued, pouring my own coffee. Whether you're capable of making a decision about our marriage without consulting anyone else. Anything, she said immediately. Tell me what you need. I'll do it. I'm going to ask you a question. You have to answer right now. In this moment. No time to think. No time to text friends. No time to analyze. Just answer. And whatever you say is going to determine what happens next. She nodded so hard I thought her neck might snap. Okay, ask me. In the last 18 months, when did you feel most connected to me? Confusion crossed her face. What? I don't understand what that has to do with. It's a simple question, I said calmly. 18 months of evaluating me, documenting my responses, scoring my behavior. Surely you remember a moment when you felt truly connected, when you forgot about the tests and the scores and just loved me. I watched her struggle. Her mind was racing. I could see it, trying to think of the right answer, the one that would fix this. But that was the problem. She was still trying to figure out the right answer instead of just answering. The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. 30. You can't think of one, can you? I said softly, not accusatory, just sad. That's not fair, she burst out. I do love you. The tests were just to make sure. Make sure of what? That I was good enough? That I met your standards? That I passed the committee inspection? I set down my coffee cup. You want to know what I remember from the last 18 months? I listed them, one by one. When her car broke down on the highway, and she called me panicking. I'd been in the middle of a meeting. Didn't matter. I told my boss there was an emergency and driven 40 minutes to get her. When she got food poisoning at 2 in the morning, I'd stayed up all night with her, held her hair, cleaned up, never complained, never made her feel gross or burdensome. When her presentation went badly at work and she came home devastated, I'd listened for 3 hours, let her vent, helped her strategize how to recover. When her grandmother died and she couldn't speak for 2 days, I just held her, dealt with logistics, called her boss, arranged time off, let her grieve. Were any of those tests? I asked. Or were they just your life happening while you were busy scoring me? She broke down completely, realized she couldn't separate real from fake anymore. The tests had poisoned everything. The doorbell rang around noon. I wasn't expecting anyone. My wife got it while I was in the shower. When I came out, there was a woman I vaguely recognized sitting in our living room. My wife's childhood friend. Someone who'd grown up with her but moved away for work. Someone who wasn't part of the evaluation committee. I heard what happened, she said to me directly. I'm not here to defend them. I'm here because she called me last night, sobbing, and what she told me made me sick. I sat down, listened. She explained things I hadn't known. My wife's father had left when she was 8. No warning, no explanation. Just gone one day. Her mother had been blindsided, devastated, had trusted completely and been destroyed. Then her mother remarried. Too quickly. To a man who seemed charming at first but became controlling, isolating, made her question her own judgment constantly. My wife's older sister had married young, 22. Divorced by 23 when she discovered her husband had a secret credit card with $40,000 in debt and a gambling problem he'd hidden completely. I'm not saying what she did was okay, the childhood friend said carefully. It wasn't. It was wrong and cruel and destructive. But she's terrified. Those friends convinced her that trusting her gut is what gets women hurt. That the only way to be sure is to test everything, to document everything, to never fully trust until someone proves themselves beyond doubt. So the solution was to treat me like a threat? I asked. Like a subject in a lab? She nodded sadly. They convinced her every man is a potential threat until proven otherwise. And even then, you can never really be sure. So you keep testing, keep monitoring, keep looking for cracks. The context didn't excuse anything, but it complicated my anger in a way I hadn't expected. That evening, my wife came to me with the printed-out assessment document, all 30 pages of it. She'd torn it into pieces, shredded each page individually. You're right, she said through tears. About all of it. I let them turn you into a subject. I let them make me doubt what I knew. I treated our marriage like a science experiment because I was too scared to just trust that I made the right choice. She got down on her knees, actually knelt in front of where I was sitting. But I'm telling you now, without asking anyone, without permission, without approval, I don't want test 6. I don't want you to evaluate me. I want you to choose me anyway. Despite everything. Please. That's not how this works, I said quietly. She looked up at me, devastated. You want me to choose you anyway, I continued. But you never chose me anyway. You chose me after 18 months of testing. You chose me after documentation and scoring and committee approval. You chose me after 5 trials and a weighted average of 8. 4 out of 10. I stood up. She stayed kneeling. I need time, space, to figure out if I can be married to someone who treats love like it needs to be earned. Who thinks trust requires a probationary period? How much time? She whispered. I'm going to stay at a hotel for 1 week. 7 days. In that time, I don't want to hear from you. No texts. No calls. No messages through mutual friends. No emails. Nothing. She started to protest. This isn't punishment, I said. This is space. For both of us. You need to figure out if you can trust your own judgment without a committee. I need to figure out if I can trust you again after finding out I was never really trusted in the first place. And then what? At the end of 7 days, we're going to have one conversation. I'm going to answer one question. Do I want to stay in this marriage? You're going to answer one question. Can you be in this marriage without them? Without their approval? Without their input? Without their validation? I grab my keys. And whatever we answer has to be completely honest. No diplomacy. No softening. Just truth. I left. Checked into a hotel across town. Turned my phone on silent. The text started immediately. Day 1, 3:47 p.m. I love you. I saw it. Didn't respond. Day 1, 6:23 p.m. I miss you already. Didn't respond. Day 1, 9:15 p.m. I can't sleep knowing you're reading these and not answering. I turned the phone face down. Day 2 started with more texts. She'd blocked all 4 friends. Showed me screenshots. Proof that she'd deleted the group chat. Cut them off completely. Day 2, 8:03 a.m. Friend 1 keeps calling. I'm not answering. Day 2, 8:47 a.m. They're saying I'm overreacting. That you manipulated me into cutting them off. Day 2, 9:15 a.m. I told them they're wrong. That I'm choosing you. I read every message. Didn't respond to any of them. Day 3, she broke the rule. Day 3, 6:23 a.m. Please just tell me you're okay. I need to know you're safe. Day 3, 7:15 a.m. I won't ask you to talk about us. Just one word. Just tell me you're alive. Day 3, 8:01 a.m. Please. I stared at my phone for 5 minutes. Then typed one response. Day 3, 8:06 a.m. That's not what we agreed on. Her response was immediate. Thank God. I'm sorry. I won't text again. I promise. I regretted responding. But at least she stopped. Days 4 and 5 passed in silence. I went to work. Functioned normally. No one noticed anything was wrong. I was good at compartmentalizing. Day 4 evening, I met my college roommate for beer. Told him a vague version of what happened. He listened. Ordered another round. Do you still love her? He asked finally. Yes, I said without hesitation. Do you trust her? I paused. Long enough that he had his answer. Then you know what you need to do, he said. Which is, figure out if love without trust is enough for you. Because for most people, it's not. Day 5, I walked past a jewelry store. Stopped. Stared at the wedding bands in the window. Remembered picking out our rings. She'd been so decisive that day. Trying on different bands, immediately knowing which one was right. This one, she'd said with certainty. Had she already been planning the tests then? Or did the doubt come later, planted by friends who meant well, but damaged everything they touched? Day 6, I started writing things down, trying to logic my way to an answer. What I knew. She tested me, documented everything, had an exit strategy, involved for other people, used her own family members, lied about emergencies, orchestrated fake conflicts, needed authorization to continue being married. What I didn't know, did she ever love me without conditions? Was she capable of change? Could trust be rebuilt? Did I even want to try? I stared at that last question for hours. Day 7. Sunday. 1 week exactly. I checked out of the hotel. Drove home. Didn't text to warn her I was coming. She was waiting in the living room. The house was immaculate. She'd been cleaning. Obsessively, by the look of it. Fresh flowers on every surface. Our wedding photo, which usually sat on a bookshelf, was now prominently displayed on the mantel. We sat down across from each other. Neither spoke for a full minute. You go first, I finally said. She took a shaky breath. Can I be in this marriage without them? Yes. I blocked all 4 on Tuesday. I haven't talked to anyone from that group. I deleted the group chat. Cut them off completely. She paused. But that's not really what you were asking. You were asking if I can trust my own judgment. If I can be a wife without a committee. If I can make decisions about us without needing external validation. Another pause. Longer this time. And I don't know, she said honestly. I want to say yes. But I've been doubting myself for so long that I'm not sure I know how to stop. I've been so scared of making the same mistakes as my mom, my sister, that I let fear make me do something worse. I turned you into an experiment instead of treating you like my husband. Tears were streaming down her face now. But I want to learn. If you'll let me. I want to learn how to trust myself. How to trust you without needing proof. How to be married without a safety net. I sat with that for a moment. It was the first completely honest answer she'd given me in this entire nightmare. "Thank you for being honest," I said. She waited. I could see her holding her breath. "Do I want to stay in this marriage?" I repeated the question out loud. I spent 7 days trying to logic my way to an answer. Made lists, pros and cons, future projections. Started treating our marriage like a problem to solve with data and analysis. I stood up, walked to the window, and then I realized I was doing exactly what I was angry at you for doing, trying to reduce love to a calculation. I turned back to face her. "The truth is, I still love you. That's the problem. If I didn't, this would be easy. I'd leave, file papers, move on. But I do. I love you, even after everything." I saw hope flicker in her eyes. "But love isn't enough anymore," I continued, and watched that hope dim. "I need more than love. I need to know that you'll fight for us. Not fight to keep me. Fight for the marriage itself. Fight for what we're supposed to be." I sat back down. "I need to know that the next time someone questions me, my character, my choices, my worth, you'll shut it down immediately. Without hesitation. Without consulting anyone. I need to know you'll defend me the way I've always defended you." "I will," she said immediately. "I swear I will." "Then prove it," I said. "Right now?" I pulled out my phone. "Call one of them. Any of them. Tell them you unblocked them just for this call. And tell them that you've decided to stay with me, and you don't care what they think about it. No explanation. No justification. Just your decision." Her hand shook as she took my phone. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she opened her contacts. "Unblock Jennifer. Press call. Put it on speaker." Jennifer answered on the first ring. "Oh, thank God. I've been so worried." My wife cut her off. "I'm calling to tell you that I'm staying with my husband. That's my decision. Mine alone. And I don't want your input, your analysis, or your approval. I'm done with all of that." "Wait, you can't just," Jennifer sputtered. "Don't you want to talk this through? We can help you process." "No," my wife said firmly. "You can't help me. You already did enough. My husband is my choice. He's always been my choice. I just forgot that for a while because I let you make me doubt what I knew. But I'm hanging up now. Please don't contact me again." She ended the call, immediately blocked the number again, looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Was that real enough?" she whispered. "That's the first time you've chosen me without permission," I said quietly. "It's the first time I've actually believed that you want this." We talked for hours after that. Set boundaries. Real ones. Her friend group was permanently out. No contact. No coffee dates to explain or smooth things over. Done. We agreed to couples counseling. Real therapy. With an actual licensed therapist, not a friend pretending to help. Someone who could help us rebuild what had been broken. We agreed there was no timeline for getting back to normal. Because normal was broken. Normal was the problem. We needed to build something new. "I need you to understand something," I said as the sun was setting. "I'm choosing to stay. Right now. In this moment. But I'm not promising to stay forever if this happens again." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "There won't be a test 7, I continued. "Because if you need to test me again, that means you've learned nothing. And I won't spend the rest of my life being evaluated like a lab rat. I won't live under constant surveillance, waiting for the next manufactured crisis to see if I react correctly." "I understand," she said. "And I wouldn't blame you if you left." "I'm not leaving," I said. "Not right now. But I need you to understand that staying is a choice I'm making every day. Not a given. Not an obligation. A choice." She nodded. "I'll make it a choice worth making." "We'll see," I said. The first month was hard. Harder than I'd expected. Every conversation felt loaded. Every decision felt like it might be another test, even though I knew intellectually that the tests were over. The paranoia had burrowed deep. One night, about 3 weeks in, she came home and casually mentioned that her coworker had invited us to a dinner party. "Do you want to go?" she asked. My immediate internal response was suspicion. Was this a test? Was she checking if I'd be social enough? Antisocial? Too controlling of her time? I must have been quiet too long because she immediately got it. "It's not a test," she said quietly. "It's just dinner. But if you don't want to go, we won't go. If you need more time before we do social things, I understand." "I don't know what I want," I admitted. "I don't know if I'm being paranoid or if I have reason to be suspicious. I don't trust my own judgment anymore." She sat down next to me. Didn't touch me. Just sat close. "I did that to you. I made you doubt everything. I'm so sorry." We didn't go to the dinner party, but we talked about it in therapy the next week. Our therapist helped us establish a framework, a way to check in about decisions without it feeling like evaluation. And in that moment, in the darkness of our bedroom, in the house we'd bought together, in the marriage we were rebuilding brick by brick, I believed her. Because she'd chosen me. Without permission. Without approval. Without safety nets. And I'd chosen her back. That was test 6. And we'd both passed.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.